Start now. Okay, fine. Yeah. So good afternoon, everyone. So today I will be giving a short presentation. Okay. So probably a very brief and fundamental introduction to what we call as a high entropy alloy. Okay. And myself, Dr. Jose Emmanuel, who is working as an assistant professor in the Department of Mechanical Engineering, IIT Bhilai. Right. So I would just like to skip. I just had this slide in case if there is anything required, but currently I don't think that there is a requirement. I'm just skipping this. Okay. So to start with, what is this high entropy alloy? So if at all I have to say what is an alloy, so alloy is a mixture of more than one element, right, which is primarily a metal. And in general, if you look into any alloy composition, there will be something you call it as a principal element, right? So for an example, if I have to say any ferrous alloy, so we'll have iron as its principal element, right? And then copper, sorry, and then carbon as some of the as a primary alloying element, and then there will be other alloying elements which is added to improve the property of the ferrous alloy, right? So in that case, the iron stand unique as a principal alloy. And to give another example, you say aluminum copper alloy. As the name signifies, I say it is an aluminum alloy where copper is an alloying element, right? So in all those cases, there is always a principal element by which the name of the alloy is in general termed, right? And then there are other constituent elements which are added to improve the property of the material. The same I have just shown here as a representative image, right? So though I have not given reference, so most of my images which I'm using in this presentation has been directly taken as a Google search, right? So I am not interested to give any advanced technical research article, as the presentation is primarily fundamental in nature and it is only for a very fundamental understanding, right? So here I say that this is a tetragonal, and if you see every corner of this particular tetragonal gives 100% of element x, right? And as you progress in any particular direction, right, so reduces the chemical composition of that particular element x, and then another element keeps on increasing. Okay, so if I say you can just focus on a particular corner where it has been written element a, and from that particular point, so that 0% of any other element, and from that particular point if I move towards element d, right? So as I progress from point A to point D, the composition of element A keeps on decreasing and the composition of element D keeps on increasing, right? So very close to A, I can say there is 1% of D with 99% of A. And then when I go more towards D, it becomes say 98% D and 2% A, right? So in that case, it becomes an alloy of element D rather than alloy of element A, right? And most of the case, if you look into the traditional way of alloys, you might have always seen the phase diagram of any binary alloy or the ternary alloy, which are focused more towards the junction point, right? So that is what I have just highlighted as these dark colors, right? So the area that is highlighted with blue color, which is more close towards point A, so that is where the traditional alloy of element A is usually focused on, right? So for an example, if I say an aluminum copper alloy, right, will not have more than 5% of copper added into it, right? And same if I have to say nickel alloy, nickel, if I even if I take a nickel based super alloy, right, you don't find composition which is more than 20 percentage of any other element other than nickel, right? So these are the traditional alloys. And what is the reason that we have not gone beyond that particular percentage? So let us say an aluminum copper alloy. So what happens when I keep on increasing the elemental composition of copper on aluminum? Let us say instead of having 5% copper, I add 30% copper. So what happens? You will be able to appreciate from the phase diagram that there are many different phases, right? So this is not applicable for any particular alloy system which is completely miscible, right? You might know different types of alloy systems, right? So there are different type of alloy systems where the primary element is completely miscible with the secondary element, right? Where there will be only one single phase after solidification throughout the spectrum, right? So that alloy anyway we don't have much of an issue. But if you say a kind of a eutectic phase diagram composition, you always find the alloy getting decomposed into multiple phases, right? And having small amount of secondary phases is always beneficial, but when the amount of the secondary phase keeps on increasing, it is primarily detrimental. And for the very single reason that most of the time these secondary phase material are all intermetallics. Okay, and that is what exactly happens, and that is what was the previous experience of the metallurgists, that whenever you keep on increasing the secondary element onto the primary element, you end up getting intermetallics rather than a, complete alloy composition. Okay. And you all will appreciate that the properties of intermetallic is not very much favorable towards the usage of a structural application, right? So intermetallics are hard and extremely brittle, right? So those added in a very trace amount in any particular alloy and having a very favorable morphology will tend to improve the properties of the material. And then when it keeps on increasing in terms of its amount present in the material, it is highly detrimental. So that is the only reason people stopped using a large amount of secondary alloying element into the primary alloying element. So primarily they went on in search of adding multiple element onto the system without disturbing the majority of the element being the principal alloying element, right? So this is the very conventional alloy system. And what is this high entropy alloy? So this particular high entropy alloy is actually out of the box thinking over the conventional alloy system, right? So where there is nothing called as a principal alloying elements, and then every single alloying element, right, so has a very major composition into the material. Or I would say in this tetrahedron of element ABCD, when I take a central zone where all of these A, B, C, and D are mixed in equiatomic composition, right? So what I end up getting is a high entropy alloy. So now there may arise a question that when we look into binary alloy system, and when I go to the central part where it is 50% A and 50% B, I get an intermetallic. And will it not be the same case when I do a equiatomic composition of A, B, C, and D, and I will end up getting an intermetallic? So that was the primary belief which prevented people from making such attempts, right? And there was one attempt made which just broke the barrier and gave rise to these high entropy alloys, right? So this is just a very notary kind of thing, that this is one of the youngest alloy that is being explored currently, right? So it was first reported in 1996, and the major attention of metallurgists towards this particular alloy turned in the year 2004, right? So where a scientist from Japan, and his last name is something called A, right? So he started exploring this particular high entropy alloy and started giving more and more scientific reason that why this alloy exists in it, this particular structure, which is contradicting the scientists' earlier beliefs, right? Yeah. And before going into its fundamental, this high entropy alloy exists in numerous domains, right? So when I say about alloy, so primarily we focus on metallic materials. That is where we primarily use alloys, right? And this high entropy alloy exists in different domains. So there are high entropy alloys which can be used for lightweight application, replacing any of the conventional lightweight material. And then there are certain high entropy alloys which can be used for high temperature applications. And then there are there are high entropy ceramics, and then there are bulk metallic glasses which is made of high entropy composition. Okay, so these are the different possible domains in which these high entropy alloys exist as on date, right? So towards the right there are some example which is just given to give a wide idea. So I just have to rename this, like the third point which I said, a high temperature ceramics. It's not ceramics, it is a high temperature refractory metal, right? I just want to correct it. I think it's a mistake from my side. Okay. So without giving any example, I'm just keeping this high entropy alloy as a black box. I'm just mentioning some key points, right? So what are the key identifiers that is making this particular class of alloy different from the other conventional alloy, right? The first and foremost point is its high configurational entropy, right? So entropy is a very hard to understand term, which was never required for any practicing metallurgist or even any practicing mechanical engineer who are into the manufacturing and material processing domain to primarily know about, right? Because we have never used this particular entropy term, which is primarily a term comes from the thermodynamic side, right? And this particular material has a very high configurational entropy. And what does this particular term gives me? Okay, so you all know there is something called Gibbs free energy, right? And this Gibbs free energy has a, proportionality with the enthalpy of a system and the entropy of the system, right? So it is G is equal to H minus Ts, right? So where S is the entropy and H is the enthalpy, right? And free energy, this Gibbs energy, to form a feasible reaction, right, should be negative. And in order to make the system negative, or it goes to a maximum lower possible side, right, the second term on the right hand side should be as high as possible, right, because that is the term it is getting subtracted from the enthalpy term, right? So this entropy is on the right hand side, the second of the right hand side. This has to be higher in order to favor certain phases, right? And this particular entropy, okay, so which for our sake, let us say the configurational entropy is actually obtained based on this particular relationship. So where R is the gas constant and X is the mole fraction of the ith element present in a particular alloy system, right? So this I varies from 1 to n depending upon the number of elements that are added onto the alloy, right? So if it is a two component alloy, then it will I will be 1 and 2, and then this will be summation of xi x1 ln 1 ln x1 and then x2 ln x2, right? So this is the summation, and then that gives me the configurational entropy of the system. So let us see what is the profile of this configurational entropy when I vary the mole fraction of this particular xi. Just give me a moment, right? So this is what we are now talking about. So this is the profile of my entropy change, right? So when I keep on increasing the composition of B with respect to A, and I am just demonstrating that with respect to a two component system, right? So when I take a two component system of 0% of B in A, the entropy is the minimum. And same is the case when it is 100% B and 0% A, that is the minimum. And the entropy keeps on increasing as I keep on adding more and more amount of B into it. And it reaches the maximum when the percentage of both A and B are equal, right? So the same thing can be expanded by adding more and more alloy system, and you will be able to appreciate that the configurational entropy of a system gets maximum when all these elemental composition are at equiatomic composition or more close towards the equiatomic composition, right? And what is this particular configurational entropy that we are talking about? So this is the configurational entropy which will favor formation of a solid solution against an intermetallic, right? So every single phase, right, or every single state of an element, every state of a system has a entropy associated with it, right? So it may be very hard to understand if we are not very much interested into the thermodynamic system, but let us just assume for god's sake that entropy is a particular property that decides the formation of a particular system onto it, right? So this gives free energy will give me the prediction of the number of phases that a material can form when I mix two or more element into a system, right? So this particular configurational entropy to favor a solid solution, right, so should be very much high enough to restrict the formation of intermetallics and all other phases, right? And I would just like to inform you that this solid solution is nothing but a mixture of more elements into a system, and then retain as a single phase, and which is a metallic phase, which means you will have a definite crystal structure, right? So that is what is a solid solution. And every single alloy that you see has at least a major matrix of solid solution, and you may have secondary phases, right? So ferrous alloys, you can see iron carbon combination is a solid solution, right, where carbon takes the interstitial position of the ferrous lattice, right? And then aluminum copper alloy in its solution treated state, right, is expected to have more than 95 percentage of aluminum matrix, which is actually solid solution, where there will be some particles, some atoms of copper, which is replacing the aluminum atom, and retains as a single aluminum lattice, right? So that is what is a solid solution, and this solid solution will give me a unique property which will act more like a metal, right? Because solid solution means that there is a definite lattice, and when there is definite lattice, which means there is some lattice defects, and then these lattice defects are the primary source for my material to have a plastic deformation and then leading to failure, right? So I'm not going to discuss about all those mechanisms in which deformations are going and all those things. Probably you have already gone through many uh, in all my previous lectures. I may not know, right? But that is how it is. So I need to develop a alloy, okay, which is a solid solution and not a intermetallics, because intermetallics is primarily a uh, it is primarily a compound rather not an alloy, so which will be very hard and brittle. So that is not my favorable state. My favorable state is solid solution, and the way to achieve the solid solution is to have a very high configurational entropy towards formation of a solid solution, and this is the way, right? And I can do by having equimolar contribution of multiple elements, right? So there are two practical definition which is given to define a high entropy alloy, right? So the first one is that a high entropy alloy is a particular alloy in which you have elements which ranges in its concentration from 5 to 35 percentage. So which means each of the alloying element will have at least 5 percentage and at most 35 percentage of its contribution, right? So if I say I have 5 component alloy system, each component will have 20 percentage, right? And in case of some requirement, we may vary the percentage of one element with respect to the other to have some desirable property, right? And the next class of definition for defining this high entropy alloy is this, that alloy which has a configurational entropy of more than 1.5 times r is called as a high entropy alloy, right? And this 1.5% 5 times r can be achieved by having at least four component of equiatomic composition or five or more. So anything above four components can give me a configurational entropy of more than 1.5 times r, right? So that you'll be easily do it by a mathematical calculation based on this particular equation, right? You'll be able to understand that. And then what if I have a alloy where I have again multiple component system, but my entropy is not more than 1.5, but it is something lesser than that, right? So there have been some research, because primarily when the research shoot up in the year 2004 to talk about high entropy alloys, many people started exploring, and then see there you won't believe me that there are thousands of combinations by which you can create high entropy alloys, right? So it is just as simple as you take a aluminum alloy and you just keep on adding a few percentage of a copper, and you'll be able to modify the properties. So there you just have two element, one is aluminum and one is copper. You don't have much of the control to vary, right? And in the same way, when I have an alloy which has five elements or six element onto it, right, you may just think of the potential in which you'll be able to tailor the property as per your requirement. And then in due course of time, you'll be also able to appreciate that there are multiple ways in which you can combine these five elements, and how to choose these five elements. So there are different possibilities of choosing these five elements. So which means if I replace one element with other element in the same alloy system, right, I will get a very significantly different property, right? So that is the beauty of this particular system. And when people started exploring this particular system, right? So there was some research where people try to vary these elements one with the other, and sometimes people started to reduce the number of elements and increase the number of elements and try to see what type of configuration the material is giving, right? Because that was a time when the complete thermodynamic understanding of the system was not very much clear, right? And then there was some cases where even in case of not a five component system but a three component system with the equiatomic composition, the material is still able to give me a solid solution. Okay, so in that case the entropy is not greater than 1.5 R, it is close to something around zero point 0.9 or 1 R, right? So those type of material people started calling as a medium entropy alloy. Okay, so that is what is this new class, which is like zero point 0.6 to 1.5 times R. Any material which is falling under this category of configuration entropy is called as a medium entropy alloy, right? Yeah. And then the next significant identifier is the electronegativity difference, right? So these are the ways by which you'll be able to tailor or create newer and new high entropy alloys, right? So where electronegativity difference of different elements that are being used also play a very major role. And what does this electronegativity difference gives me? So I take a material which is highly electronegative, and I take another element which is highly electropositive, right? So when I try to mix these two elements, so instead of forming an alloy, it tend to form a compound, right? So that is how we form ionic compounds, right? So that is why you should select a material, you should select the group of elements, right, which does not vary in terms of the electronegativity factor significantly, right? Yeah. And then the next thing is the atomic size difference. So as I already said, this high entropy alloy exists in a symbiotic solid solution state, right? So let us say I take five elements, okay, aluminum, copper, cobalt, iron, nickel. So there are five elements and I'm adding everything in 20 percentage, right? So it has to exist in a solid solution state, right? Which means that it should have a lattice, and then every atom should sit in the lattice position, right? So now there is a challenge that which lattice it should possess, because everything is of equiatomic, right? So it can have a lattice structure of iron, or it can have a lattice structure of nickel or of cobalt or of aluminum, right? So it has different options. And then again there is a challenge that, see, let us say for aluminum it is an FCC and for iron it is a BCC. So which type of lattice it will choose, right? So for all these cases are already there is a system, there is a complexity involved. And then again, over and above, you should not have more and more complexity. Let us say I take a atom of iron and I take an atom of uranium and I also put it into a cocktailing, right? So I cannot have atomic sizes of huge difference so that it will disturb the lattice structure, right? So now comes the point of this particular difference, that you cannot have atoms of, or you cannot have elements into a high entropy alloy system which have an atomic size difference not more than 15 percentage to it, right? So any atoms which has a difference not more than 15 percentage in terms of the atomic size can be used to mix and generate a high entropy alloy, right? And the last point is this valence electron configuration. You all know what is this valence electron configuration, right? This is nothing but every atom has different shells in which electrons are arranged in it, right? And the last shell is called as a valence shell, right? And in that last valence electron shell, so what is the constant configuration of the electrons, right? So what is the filling in the s orbital, std orbitals and all those things. So that is what you call it as a valence electron configuration, right? And it has been reported in some places that this valence electron configuration of all the elements which are used, right, so give some prediction in terms of the crystal structure which will be likely formed by adding these number of elements, right? So based on the valence electron configuration, people are able to predict whether the formed alloy will have a FCC structure or a BCC structure or a BCT structure, right? But I'm not going to explain much because I do not find it to be a scientifically proved method, because there are some places where there are outliers, right? So this is not a very scientifically established way to understand what is FCC and what is BCC, right? So, but this also exists. That's what I wanted to show here. Yeah. So coming to the structure, So what I show here on my left is the regular crystal structure, right? I take a iron, pure iron. This is the regular crystal. This is going to be its regular crystal structure, right? Or it will be similar to this crystal structure. And if I add some carbon onto it, right, it will sit onto the interstitial positions, right? If I look into the high entropy alloy, this is how it starts. Reason is very simple that structure I just and then iron in this particular salt over here and nickel over here. Going to still retain the same size? The answer is no. Just a minute, I just have to check with my internet connectivity. I believe it is working, right? Yeah. So what happens? One atom is lesser in size and one atom is bigger in size, right? Which is definitely going to give me a lattice distortion, and that is what is represented here schematically, right? So this is going to be its crystal structure, and I know it is completely distorted, and it is this particular distortion which is going to give me a favorable property, and which is completely different than the parent elements which are being used, right? So the outcoming high entropy alloy has a property which is better than all of these elements which are put together, and which is primarily because of its crystal structure, right? Yeah. So properties it has, which is primarily right. So this is one of the least bother strengthening when it comes to the conventional alloy, right? So let us, for example, I take an aluminum alloy, right? And if an aluminum alloy is age hardenable, right? So the aging process is performed starting from the supersaturated solid solution, right? So supersaturated solid solution is the state of the alloy where you have the maximum amount of solute atoms retained in the solid, right? So even in that case, the strength obtained in the aluminum is very poor, right? And that is the reason you go for a age hardening, and the age hardening strength, the strength contribution from the precipitation hardening is much higher. It is at least 10 times higher than that of solid solution strengthening. It is primarily because solid solution strengthening primarily comes from the point defect, right? When I say point defect, I am also assuming that any imperfection in a lattice is a defect, right? So in a lattice of aluminum, and if aluminum atom is replaced by copper in some of the lattice points, it is considered to be a defect, right? And this copper, because of the size mismatch with the aluminum, creates a lattice strain, and this lattice strain impedes the motion of the mobile dislocation and thus improves the strength of the material, right? And since the mismatch of size of aluminum and copper is very less, the strength contribution from the solid solution is low, right? And the same applies when my size is extremely going to be smaller, right? So that is why when we add small atoms in the interstitial, and the interstitial is not providing me sufficient amount of strain energy, the strength is not going to increase much. And if we look into the structure of the high entropy alloy, right? So what we see is a heavily distorted microstructure, which means at every single point of my lattice, right, there is a lattice strain, and this lattice strain will severely impede my motion of dislocation when there is a deformation induced onto the material. And this motion, this dislocation blockage, right, by this strain energy is going to improve the strength of my material. So thus the strength of my high entropy alloy is higher than the strength of my individual elements as calculating separately, right? So that is how it is. And then the next thing is its creep resistance, right? So usually a material with high strength, right, may not have a very good creep resistance, right? So primarily for the reason that the strengthening contribution for the material at room temperature might be different, and the same for the same given material, the strengthening contribution required at high temperature may be something different, right? As a very simple example, I can say that aluminum alloy, right, in a age hardened state, right, will give a very high strength at room temperature, And if I try to increase the temperature of the material, right, and I try to test the material at high strength at high temperature, right, the strength of the material drastically drops, for the reason that at high temperature the precipitates are not stable, right. The precipitates either coarsen or it gets into the solution, creating a solid solution matrix, right. So thus the strength contribution from the precipitate degrades, right. So having said this, the primary strengthening effect in a high entropy alloy is solid solution strengthening, right. So this being a stable phase both at room temperature and at high temperature, right, so the material is able to retain its high strength. And then another thing, so the material's solid state diffusion, right, the diffusion rate in solid state, right, is primarily dependent upon the temperature, and with increasing temperature the diffusion rate is going to be increased, right. So which will call for annihilation of dislocations and then migration of one atom to another atom site, right. So these are the primary reason by which the material starts degrading its property. And diffusion also acts as one of the primary deformation mechanism at high temperature, right. So deformation becomes diffusion dominated at high temperature in some case, and it becomes grain boundary dependent mechanism in some cases. But whatever is the reason, at low strain rate diffusion the based deformation becomes dominant when we talk about creep mechanism, right. So under the same circumstance, when we compare that with that of the high entropy alloy, because of this distorted lattice, and then again there is one atom which is of smaller size against another atom which is of higher size, right. So the diffusion becomes difficult whatever may be the temperature, right. So the diffusion of atom itself gets hindered, sir. So thus the diffusion is also prevented, and at the same time the solid solution strength is also retained at high temperature. So thus the material's performance is not affected by the temperature, right. So though this is not very straightforward, as I say, because there are other microstructural features that also contribute to the performance of the material when it comes to high temperature, right. And one such feature is the grain boundary, right, which is obviously they are both in high entropy alloy as well as in normal alloy, right. So the same effect that the grain boundary gives to the conventional alloy is also applicable to the high entropy alloy, right. But the lattice property which is getting deviated much in case of room temperature in terms of conventional alloy is not observed in the high entropy alloy, thus leading to better performance, right? So as an example, if I have to say, we did experimentation of a certain high entropy alloy where the strength of the material was retained up to a temperature of 1100 degrees Celsius, where the melting point of the material is just 1600 degrees Celsius. So which means it is more like a steel, right, wherein the property of the steel gets affected even beyond 600 degree or 700 degrees Celsius max, right. So here the strength did not fall more than 10 percentage even at a temperature of 1100 degrees Celsius, right. So that is the level of performance improvement that we can see in a high entropy alloy as against the conventional alloy system. So just this is a schematic representation to show you how this diffusion can be realized, right. So if at all in a conventional alloy, right, an atom has to pass through another atom, right. So this will be the energy, right, difference in the energy as it has to travel, right. Whereas in case of a high entropy alloy, you can see the difference in the energy difference, right, as it travels from one point to the other. This drop and peak is primarily because of the atom that are placed in its own path, right. This is how it is. So coming to the fabrication routes, uh, I would say there is hardly any application where this particular alloy has been realized, primarily because of the many unknown truths that are not known to the scientific community yet. Okay. So having said this, most of the high entropy fabrication is being done at only lab scale, right? And there are primarily two different way. One is a solid state fabrication, other one is a liquid state fabrication, which are primarily employed, right? When it comes to the solid state fabrication, the primary route being adopted is a mechanical alloying route. Okay. So where multiple elemental powders are mixed together and are subjected to a high energy agitation, and because of the high energy impact of one particle with the other, there is a mechanical diffusion taking place, and because of the diffusion, there is a alloy formation. So one example of this particular route is a high energy ball mill. You all might be aware of this high energy ball mill where the powders of different alloying element are mixed together and which is placed in a container wherein you also fill some amount of heavy balls of bigger diameter than the original powder, and then you subjected it to a random motion. So because of this motion, the high density powders strike each other and it strikes the wall, and wherever there is a powder metallic powder that gets stuck between these makes the powder to deform, and because of the deformation there is a diffusion which is happening. The powder to powder diffusion happens, and because of that there is a mechanical alloying that is happening, right? So there are a lot of YouTube videos which you can just google it to visualize this process, right? This is one way of generating high entropy alloy, and the other way is through spark plasma sintering. And why are we talking about all these kind of complex process when we have lot of conventional process to generate lot of normal alloys? So here the reason why we cannot opt for a normal conventional alloying technique is that we require a sudden increase in the temperature, a rapid melting and a rapid cooling. Okay, so we cannot hold on the material for a very longer time because see there are a lot of elements which is involved into the material, right? So at liquid state, because of the density difference of different atoms, right, there is a high chance of segregation, elemental segregation from one point to the other point, right? So because of that, you may not have a uniform high entropy maintained throughout the melt spool, right? So that is the reason why you want to have a sudden melt, a rapid melting and a rapid cooling, right? So that is the reason why we cannot opt for conventional processing to generate high entropy alloy. Though there are some research which is being performed in that particular direction to prolong the time of melting or to prevent the segregation, the atomic segregation, right? So those are some of the areas that even you, if you wish, can explore, right? So these are the two ways that most of the researchers are currently proceeding in, right? So I think considering the time, I would just stop here in terms of the information that I am providing on high entropy alloy. And I just wanted to show some view on the scope of research or the current research progress that is happening in this particular alloy system, right? So as I have shown here, there is a large scope of research towards this particular alloy system, and it starts with the very fundamental composition itself, right? So as I said earlier, with certain restrictions said in my first slide about the high entropy nature, the electronegativity mismatch, the valence electron configuration, all those parameters, you can choose any number of any element, any element, any number of element. The only restriction is that it should be more than 4 or 5, right? You can choose multiple number of elements as long as it is not deviating from the very fundamental property requirement of high entropy alloy, and then you can just try to explore what is the property, right? For the only reason that the property of the high entropy alloy is not going to be same as either any of the element that you are going to use, right? Let us take let us say I take a composite combination of aluminum, iron, nickel, and I just try to mix these three alloy in equi composition, right? The net result is not going to be similar to either of these a metal. It is not going to be like aluminum or like nickel or like iron, but a combinatory of all these things, and it's going to be give a very completely different new class of material, right? Thus it requires a huge investment of time and effort right? To understand, you develop a material and understand its performance, and also to look into its longevity and all the other stability aspects, right? So there are two ways you do it. You have equiatomic combination, in which the number of atoms that are going to require is very less. With only five elements, you can have a equiatomic high entropy alloy combination. And if you want to deviate from the equiatomic structure, where you want to remove the negative effect of certain elements and have the positive effect of some other elements, let us say I want to have more nickel and less iron, right? So in that case, having five elements will reduce the overall entropy of the system. So wherein you need to have some more elements, right, to maintain the entropy of the system. So those things you can explore and work on that. And the next thing is the processing. So as I said earlier, there are two conventional way of doing it. One is mechanical alloying and another one is arc welding. Arc welding is a bit costly process, though there are some very simple process to do that. Mechanical alloying is very easy, so every lab I believe should have a ball milling setup, right? And regarding this arc melting, there is a traditional way of doing it. It has to be done in vacuum or something. But even to start with, even a arc welding setup would suffice to generate a small button of a high entropy alloy, right? You just think about that and you'll be able to find a way to do that if you wanted to do it, right? And then in terms of the properties, there is a lot of scope that one can look into, right? And this particular property has to be matched by tailoring the material into the composition level itself, right? So whether what is the objective of my material that I'm going to generate, whether it is going to be a diffusion barrier coating for a diffusion barrier application, or it is for a corrosion oxidation resistance application, or it is for a high temperature application, right? So based on that, you have to choose a suitable combination, right? And if it is going to be a high temperature oxidant resistant material, or it is going to be diffusion barrier, your high entropy alloy is definitely going to have a refractory metal combinations, right? And then the structure microstructure relationship, the structure property relationship. So any material that you're going to develop, right, by a suitable combination, in order to achieve a significant property, right, obviously you have to do a structural analysis and the performance analysis, and you have to try to understand, right? And this is one area, this modeling is one primary area which is not very much explored, and primarily the physical physical understanding of these high entropy alloys in terms of the fundamental modeling is not yet carried out to a larger extent. So one having a good skill in mathematical framework, right, can try explore this area. So primarily the molecular dynamics model and the phase field modeling. So these are something which is very much important. Calford model is a much relatively easier method, where this is primarily used to understand the phase evolution of the material, right? Here we are using more than three or four elements, and you do not know what would be the possible phases that are coming out of it. So this Calford will give some kind of predictive phases, but when you need to understand the very fundamental behavior of the material, you have to go to either of these molecular level or atomic level modeling to understand much deeper onto this metal system, right? So there is a very huge scope for this material. This material is very young material, and I would welcome any young researchers to start their career into this particular material, right? And you will have a very fantastic journey, right? So this is the end note. So this is still in the stage of R&D. So that's why it calls for your help, to make our nation to lead in this particular material domain, right? And there is still a scope, and I see a huge potential in this particular field, right? So with this, I end my lecture. And since this being a YouTube recorded lecture, so I'll be open to have any query or discussion on this particular topic. And you can feel free to write me at this my email ID. My email ID is jos@iitbilai.ac.in, right? And I will happy to respond you back. Right? Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.